Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast. Hopefully, and I really mean it this time, hopefully there's no tech issues in this episode at all. Fingers crossed. Fourth time lucky. So, this week's guest is Lizzie. She is an incredible runner. She does it all from fastest known times to backyard ultras, going for the women's record and doing multi-stage and multi-day events from WildHorse 200-mile race where she came third, to doing the Dragon's Back. Doing 50 laps at a backyard ultra. And if you don't know what that means she ran 4 miles on the hour every hour for 50 hours. Lizzie is absolutely incredible, and I cannot thank one of my number one listeners, Joe, for the recommendation, because this is another cracking episode with another fantastic human being. So if you want to find out more about Lizzie's experience and all of the many different things that she's done in the running world, keep listening to the episode. My first question, as you know from listening to some episodes, what was your call to adventure?
I would say the Barkley Marathons, because I got into ultra running. I'd never really classed myself as a proper runner for a long, long time, even though I think a really long time ago, in 2009 maybe, I did do a marathon. That's like a whole... Maybe we'll talk about that, but that's like a whole different story. But yeah, I started ultra in 2019 and started then trying to find things on YouTube or Amazon or whatever to watch, because I just wanted to know more about it after I'd done my first couple. Came across Barkley, got completely obsessed with it, and everything I do is with Barkley in mind. Everything I have done today is to put me one step closer to Barkley. So I sort of have looked at races that Barkley Marathon people have done, Dragon's Back being one of them, so I did that. But then I thought, well, you're not allowed anything when you're doing the Barkley Marathon, so I have to learn how to use a map and a compass. So that's how I got into FKTs. So I was finding routes off the FKT website and then going out. But I very quickly, my very, very first FKT that I attempted, I had to restart it 3 times because I just didn't have a clue. Then I hired someone to teach me how to. We spent the day in the Brecon Beacons. Brett, he's amazing, great friend now. He paces me on various races. So I just, Barkley Marathons, everything I do is to put me closer to there. So that's doing the Dragon's Back, doing FKT routes, learning how to use a map and a compass, and then getting into backyard ultra. Because if you are really good at backyard ultra, then you might get an invitation to do Barkley. So I think at the very beginning, I was like, oh, well, that's my easy ticket into Barkley. That was when I was really naive and didn't know anything. So yeah, my call to adventure, Barkley Marathons.
What was it about the Barkley that's like sparked this within you?
I don't like being told I can't do something, and with Barkley you can't even enter it because you don't know how. So I think that was maybe the first part, was just you can't just fill out an online entry form, pay your fee and go and do it. If you want to do it, you've really got to work, because you've got to figure it out, and I did quickly find, I was quite quick at finding Laz's email address. We did have a back and a forth, because my email that I wrote to Laz, the title of it was, I am the first woman to complete the Barkley Marathons. And he replied, and we had a back and a forth. This was obviously before Jasmine Paris. And since then, I have sent him a couple of emails, but he didn't reply. So then I thought, did I accidentally reply? Did I accidentally send him an email on the entry date? Which is possible. And that's why he responded to me. I don't know. But anyway, he's not the RD anymore. So I've got to start from scratch. I think it's, that whole, the initial was you can't just do it. You've got to work at it. And then the excitement of, you don't really know anything about, you know a little bit about the course, but once people are on the course, you know, everything's so secretive. It's like this really, to me, it just seems like this massive adventure. And you're really dependent on yourself. You know, you can't, you don't have your watch with you. You've got to use a map and a compass. The map you're given, from what I understand, the map you see when you're there is not even that accurate, and you've got to then draw what you see. You've then got to draw down for yourself, and I don't know. The whole thing is just totally bonkers, and I'm really drawn to that because think I'm a slightly bonkers person myself. So.
So before the Barclay, then you said you'd already done some ultras. So what had you done before finding out?
I did. So I was doing a boot camp, and I still do a boot camp. Blaze, very obsessed with that, and we do a Saturday run session. Which I think that's when I then realised I could run, because I was never at the back. I was sort of towards the front on those sessions, and I think that, you know, and that was all on trails, and I really enjoyed that. And I had a friend who did it with me called Jo, and she was telling me how she'd entered this ultra, and it was at the weekend. And I thought about it. I thought, well, we do the boot camp together. We're pretty similar fitness levels. If she can do it, surely I can do it. And then this little advert popped up on Facebook to say that there was a discount code for entering. So I entered it with 3 days to go, sent her a message, and I said, I've decided I'm going to do this ultra with you. Should we maybe car share? And she said, oh no, my ultra's not this weekend, it's in 3 weeks time. So I entered the wrong ultra, with 3 days to spare. And I think my longest recent run had been 10 miles. So I did that, and I just I loved it. I loved it so much. It was just the most amazing day out. It was incredible. And I did okay. You know, I was top 10. I think I was 7th or 8th lady. In my mind, that was just, you know, this is your first ultra on no training. Just imagine how good you could be if you trained for it. So I then decided I was going to be this like Olympic ultra runner, not that, you know. But anyway, you know, I was just so like thinking, I'm going to be great at this. This is going to be my thing. So I then decided I was going to do UTMB, started researching all the races because you have to qualify for that. The only race that I was available to do that would qualify me was Hardmoor's 80 miles in Yorkshire. And I rocked up there, people asking me, oh, you know, how long is this going to take you? And I'd taken my marathon time from many years previously, times that by 3. And I was like, yep, I'm going to do this in 12 hours. And I remember people's reactions were like, wow, you must be so good. And like that was when I was like, oh God, maybe it might take a bit longer than 12 hours. And I was just such an idiot because it was November, there'd been flooding, it was chucking down with rain, there was mud. I just never experienced anything like it. It was one of the most horrific things I've ever done in my life. My shoes were too small, I didn't know how to eat. I didn't have a GPX watch, I was relying purely on the finger posts. I didn't have a map. I was ill, I had a cold. And it took me, I think, just under 22 hours to do it. And it was soul destroying because at 12 hours, when I thought I would be finished and I was nowhere near the finish, it was just, it was awful. And but I did it. That was, I don't know why, but I didn't quit. And I just carried on. I do know why, because I really wanted to qualify for UTMB. That's why. So I qualified, entered the ballot, didn't get a place. Said to my husband, I'm never doing this ever again. You know, that I don't know why I thought ultra running was a good idea. It's horrible. It hurts. I hate it. I've never been so miserable in my life. But then you forget all that, don't you? And then I think it was when it could have been around about that time that I was recovering from that run, that I possibly started finding out about Barclay, and then everything was forgotten, you know. So, yeah, and then I've just been on this bonkers journey ever since, like just doing things. Like the FKTs have been amazing because I think people look at my like running CV and they're like, oh, wow, she's done, actually, including today's, I've now done 19. She's done so many FKTs, she must be amazing. But the thing is with them, hardly any of them, certainly the ones in my area, there's no women's time. So all you have to do is go and do it and you will get an FKT. And they come in all sorts of distances. You can get, I think the minimum distance is, I think it's 6 miles. So like the one I did today was supposed to be 13 miles. There may have been a few nav errors. It ended up being 15, but whatever. So I think FKTs are amazing because they get you to explore new areas. They get you to look at a map, take note of your surroundings. You have to plan like the day out. And then as I got more confident with them, I then chose, and because of the FKTs, I think that's also why I discovered, I've always known the Brecon Beacons were there, but I'd never really sort of thought about going there to run. And now that's like my favourite place in the world to be. So I picked the Gwyn Harris round because that's 75 miles in the Brecon Beacons and FKT route. No woman had done it. I contacted Ed, the creator. He was super supportive. I was asking him, I was really worried that, because I was quite new to the Brecon Beacons then, and I didn't know if it was, and if it was similar to Snowdonia, and I think my main concern was I could fall off a mountain. And he was like, no, there's nothing on the route that you can't just randomly fall off a mountain, you'll be fine. So I started then doing recce's, and that was a massive wake up for me because I think so many people doubt themselves, but for me, of course I doubt myself, but I tell myself that I can do it, and I just tell myself until I believe it. And I find that really works for me. So, but I went there to recce the route and then discovered that it was really, really hard. It was nothing like the trails I'd ever run on before. I was having to fight my way through undergrowth, and it was like, it takes you through the more remote areas of the Brecon Beacons. And I remember the first recce I did, I had to cut it massively short because I thought I could do 20 miles, but because of time, I think I only managed to do 12 or something. Anyway, I did all of the recce's for Gwyn Harris, and I think at the start of it, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to do this FKT route. No way. I'm just not good enough. But of course, by the time I'd done all the recce's, I'd learnt mountain craft. I'd been in the mountains. My legs were stronger. And then I was like, I've done all the work. I may as well just put the jigsaw together and just do it. And then and I did it, and I think with rounds like that, people hope to get sub 24. For me, it was just, I just want to do it, and I thought maybe I'd do it in 30 hours, but I did it in like 20, I think it was 27 hours I did it, and I think to date that is the proudest achievement of my life, because to go from nothing, just running around where I live on the trails, to then have completed 75 miles in the Brecon Beacons on a map and compass. I had my friends sort of coming in to meet me at certain points so I could get food top-ups, but I was pretty much, I did feel like I was on my own out there. And then I did have, for the overnight section, my friend Brett and his friend Jamie, they came to meet me to sort of escort me through the night, shall we say, because I'd never run in the mountains at night time. And it was just like, yeah, it just really taught me a lot, because don't limit yourself. Don't tell yourself you can't do something, because you bloody well can. So I don't know what your original question was, but I'm pretty sure it had nothing to do with that. Sorry, I do go off on a tangent.
Doesn't matter. I love a tangent on this podcast. So going from your FKTs then, what's been like the other achievements that you've managed to hit since doing, or since watching the Barkley?
Yeah, so I've done I think after Gwyn Harris, I then did my first 100 miler, which was a Centurion event. And that was incredible because it was about 3 weeks after Gwyn Harris, and I'd done so much in the mountains. I got on the that Centurion South Downs Way, and in my mind it was flat. It was just, the whole thing was so runnable, and I went there with like no plan to do well because I'd only done Gwyn Harris like 3 weeks before. So to me, it just felt like a really, really long like victory lap. Well done, you've done all the mountain stuff. This is just like some kind of really long cool down. And it was just such a nice attitude to go in there because I didn't have any expectations on myself, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then I just thought, yeah, I can do 100 miles. I think before that I'd sort of said to people, oh, I'd never do 100 miler because I think people do it for the number, but for me, everything I do for the beauty and the scenery. So the number's kind of irrelevant. But then it showed me that I can run for that long. So it kind of opened up, I suppose, a few more races. So I did anything in the Brecon Beacons I love. So I did Beacons Way 100 miler. That was in 2023, and I got the ladies course record for that one, which has since been taken by Sana Duffy. And then I've done WildHorse 200. I did that last year, and I'm doing it again this year because I loved it. I did Dragon's Back. That was tough. I did get timed. Oh God, yeah. So I didn't even think I could do day one because of Cribgoch. Like I had major issues beforehand. I hired Brett again to do a 1-to-1 session with me to get me over Cribgoch on a recce. And when it came to, I couldn't do it. So we did Trefan as like a warm up. And when we got to Cribgoch, I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong, aren't I? But when we got there, I couldn't do it. It was just too much for me. So the first time I did it was on day one of Dragon's Back, and I've never been so terrified in all my life. And I did everything I could. I did mindset coaching. I started with clip and climb, then progressed to proper climbing walls. I did bouldering. With the mindset coaching, I did a lot of visualization. I really feel like I did everything I could to prepare myself physically and mentally, but when it came to it, it was the most, and yeah, it was horrible. So to have completed day one of Dragon's Back was phenomenal because I just didn't know if I could. And then I completed day two and then day three. And the year I did Dragon's Back was 2023 when it was a heat wave, and it was just, there was no breeze. It was just, the heat was exceptional. And Shane was even having to put additional half-hour buffers to allow people's to basically enforce people to have 30-minute rests to allow their heart rates to drop and then to cool down and properly, get water on board. It was so hot. And then on day 5, I got timed out by like 3 minutes from, I think you have like, there's only 1 or maybe 2 points on the course where you have to be there within a certain time. And then, of course, the finish, you've got to be there at a certain time. And it was the one, I think it was maybe 7 miles before the finish. That was a timed thing. And I knew I was cutting it fine. And I thought I needed to be at the underpass for Penny Van. And I got to the underpass with like 2 minutes to spare, and I had really gone so hard to get there on time, and I got there and I realized that wasn't the point. It was like 1 kilometer further down, and I say sprinting, it probably wasn't, but I felt like I was sprinting. And I just remember seeing the marshal, she looked at me and just shook her head because like there was no way I was going to make it. And it was really, really hard. Even now I feel quite emotional about it, because I can't go back to Dragon's Back because of Crib Goch. I cannot put myself through that again. So I'm devastated that I got timed out so close to the end. And I do sort of feel like I could have got to the finish within, with a few minutes to spare. I really feel like I could have done day 5, and then day 6, you're just kind of head down, get it done. But anyway, yeah, that was, anyway, yeah. Dragon's Back, I sort of did that, most of it.
So you've achieved quite a lot in running, and like you were saying earlier, like you've now gone more into the backyard stuff.
Yeah, so my first backyard was 21 at Fackham, which has about 750 foot elevation. So it's a tough course, and I was last lady, but I think the 5th one I got timed out. And again, like with my attitude of, I'm going to be great, you can do this, you can win, blah, blah, blah. I'd gone into that backyard not having run 100 miles before. I had done a bit of mountain stuff, because I think I had gone to Snowdonia with my friend Kev he was doing Dragon's Back that year, and I think we'd recce day 2 together. Anyway, I was pretty good. My legs were pretty good for the elevation. My mind was pretty good, but I just wasn't used to that amount of time on my feet. And I got timed out. My foot hurt or whatever. And I went away from that a bit kind of like, you can do better, but just not now. You need to grow as a runner. You need to learn stuff. So I kind of thought, right, just put backyard, I want to do really well at backyard, but I want to do it properly. So I kind of like put it to one side for a bit. And that is then when I went off and then just did everything else, did all the FKTs, did the mountain stuff, joined a running club, just kind of upped boot camp, just went away, learned and grew as a runner. And then this year I've come back to it. So my first backyard ultra this year was in January, and I was the assist, and I got timed out on the 33rd yard, and that was enough to get me a spot on the England team. So I'll be competing for England at Highlander Backyard Ultra in July. And then I got invited to compete at a Rasselbock event in Nottinghamshire. So that was in Sherwood Pines. And then by then I was like, right, I want to get the ladies' GB record. To do that, I would need so Sarah Perry's the current female record holder. She's got 59. So I would need 60. So I went into Rasselbock definitely as the underdog, because like no one knew who I was. But I've got a friend who is quite well known in Backyard Ultra, and she had told the race director that she had confidence in me. I think off the back of my performance at Copthorne races, because it's not a backyard, but it's 100 miles. It's 10-mile laps. I'd done that in November. It was Storm Burt. Everyone DNF'd apart from me. I was the only one who finished it. And I think when she was watching me do that, she thought, right, she's got determination. So Eric asked me if I wanted to compete at Rasselbock. I said yes, and said I was going to get the GB record. And I learnt a lot again from that one, because it got to the point where it's just 2 of us for like a really, really long time. So the guy who won, Ian, it was he and I for like 8-9 hours, and it's pretty lonely, when you're not running together. We were running different paces, and after a while I just thought, it's actually really boring and I'm a bit miserable and I don't really want to be doing this anymore. But I could if I wanted to, because physically I'm fine. But I thought that was when my priorities sort of shifted, because I thought, when I get this record, I want to look back on it and be really proud of it. And I want to have enjoyed the process. I don't want to Like, where's the joy in just making yourself run round and round and round in circles just for the sake of it, just to get a record? So Ian had told me to get the Scottish record, he needed 50 yards. So I decided I would run to 50 so he could get his record. I went out on the 51st and then I turned back and quit. And it's incredible because when I stood on that start line, I could get 60, but I didn't know if I could. But now I know I can because I got 50. I definitely had more in the tank. So I'm super excited. I mean, Highlander's there's a little bit of elevation on Highlander. So I don't know I don't know how long Highlander will go. It'd be cool to get the record on that course, but I haven't recce'd it. So I know there's more elevation, but I don't quite know what it's like. But the next opportunity would be in September. I think I'm doing Hardwick Hall Backyard Ultra. I think that's a good one to hopefully get a record. Should be very excited.
No, it sounds it. I'm like fascinated by backyards at the minute because I did my first one like just over a week ago, and I'm like, how do you keep going?
Was that the medieval one?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool because Sarah Perry. So yeah, Paul Fenn, who was the assist. He's on the England team actually. So we were like, we've got like a little WhatsApp group. We were like, come on, Paul, keep going. But yeah, no, it's amazing. It's there's a lot to it. I think that's why I like it. It's not just running. There's your mind is a massive part. I think your mind is a bigger part than your, how strong or physical you are. Because on paper, like at Sherwood Forest, it was 166 starters, and I got down to the final 2. And on paper, a massive percentage of those starters are much stronger runners than me. And if we were on a normal A to B race, they would absolutely just leave me. So I think, your mind is a massive, massive part of it, and your organisation as well, because when you've got your 5-7 minutes downtime or whatever, you need to use that time wisely. So maybe you should be resting or maybe you should be eating, but that's kind of depends on each individual. There's so much to Backyard Ultra, so much. There's mind games as well because people like talk to each other and then you don't always know, are they saying that to put you off or are they just, is it banter? And then you've got the whole community aspect of it because the whole purpose of Backyard really is to find your limits, push your boundaries, see how far you can go, but you can't do that on your own because obviously the winner, they can only go 4 miles further than the assists, so they're nothing without someone with them supporting them. So you've got this whole weird, there's 2 things going on because you have to work as a team. You have to work together to push each other, but then ultimately there can only be one winner. So I find the whole thing is really, really intriguing. And you are, for me, I just think if someone's struggling on the backyard, you should say hi, ask them how they're doing, encourage them. Because then maybe later on you might be struggling and they could be the person that helps you. And I think that's what's nice about it is because you are all there, all of you have the same goal, which is to find your limits and push your boundaries. Everyone could stand on that starting line saying that they want to win, but ultimately what they're saying is they want to see where their limit is and see how far they can go. Backyard's super intriguing. I love it because there's just so many different things at play at once. So how did you get on with yours?
I managed 16.
Oh wow.
And then I was done. I wrote like a whole race report on it and I was like reflecting on it, and I was struggling a lot earlier than I should have been struggling on. Looking at the sort of things that I've done before, and like looking back I was like, I had heat stroke. But I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I couldn't like drink or eat or anything. And when I got back, I would literally just go into my tent, lie down until I had to get back up. And then I was like, all right, up again. And it just got to the point where, not at the time I didn't realise, but I was like, I just can't do any more. And I didn't know why. And then waking up in the middle of the night, throwing up and being like that for the next 2 days. and like the heat was just still killing me, I was like, oh, had some heat stroke there, and I
Yeah.
should know that because I'm prone to it, but I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't plan for it. So I'm now slightly annoyed, but more so curious on how much further could I have gone
Well,
if I didn't have heat
that's the
stroke.
danger of backyard, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, because like I went from that first one I did, I was like 19 or 20 yards, then it was 32, then it was 50. You know, it's like, where do you stop?
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, but that's the cool thing about it. And you learn so much. There's so much you can learn on a backyard that you can then apply to like your normal like A to B races.
Yeah.
And it's such a safe way to find your limits as well, because you're never more than 2 miles from, you know, the start. And it's just a great way to find your boundaries, learn about yourself. Because I think mentally you grow a lot during a backyard, because it's a lot to ask yourself to just be doing the same course again and again and again and again. So you've got to kind of find ways to be okay with that, be okay with your own thoughts, or if there's people around you, like chat to them. So it's great. I love it.
What's your like strategy and tactics going into it? Like, do you have like a set like nutrition plan that you've thought of? Is there like certain timings you're trying to hit, or?
I generally, yeah, I mean, depending on the course. So with Rasselbach, I was aiming for 53 minutes, and I think my average lap times are 52 actually. Fackham, I was more like 55 minutes, and the one in January, maybe like 53 again. So yeah, which I think's good. You don't want to be, some people go charging round in like 40 minutes. I just don't see the point of that, because you're just going to get stiff and bored waiting. And in terms of food, I tend to do like a small snack, big snack, small snack, big snack. I can eat. Like, I think that is one of my things that I can do, is I can really eat. Like, I've never ever had a problem eating. So, and I think that's, you know, why I can do so well sometimes. I think, you know, because people are like chucking up in the bushes and I'm just like eating pizza and chips down in a milkshake and carrying on, you know. So I think, yeah, nutrition is super important for backyard. And I think you just need more than you realise. Like, the amount of food I ate at Rasselbach was unbelievable how much food I got through. And like proper, because there was a catering van, so you know, it wasn't just like bars. I was having like halloumi and chips. I had an egg and mushroom burger and more chips and more halloumi and super noodles and rice puddings and like proper big meals like every other lap. And you just for me just get as much food into you as possible, because as soon as you stop eating, I think that's the beginning of the end, because you're then in deficit, and it would be really hard. You know, in a normal race, if you wanted to sit down for an hour, you can do that, but in backyard, you've got your 5-7 minute window. So if you're in deficit, there's not a lot you can do about that. So just keep chucking it down your throat.
What about like sleep then? Because like, do you sleep?
So I've got insomnia anyway.
Handy for backyards.
Yeah. But I did on Rasselbach. I have got these ear defenders, so I'd put them on, cover my eyes. So I would tend to have like 2 to 3 minutes of just total chill. But there was one off the back of 1 yard, I did fall asleep for 2 minutes, and I'm not sure that helped me, because that was one of my worst laps. I think when I came round from that and went out, I was just all over the place. I was really groggy. So I don't know. I really like the idea of sleeping, because if I'm going to do 60, I think sleeping would be a good move. But I don't know. At the moment, it's not something I know how to do. So I'm just going to carry on with my ear defenders and an eye mask and hope that will just keep me going. But yeah, some people do have like proper sort of 5-minute sleeps.
I don't think I could go that long without sleeping. Like, I don't exactly sleep well, but like the thought of going over 2 days without sleep and having to run that far, it's just like, I just can't believe it, to be honest.
I mean, for me with Rasselbach, I just got in because I did like a Q&A, a Facebook Live yesterday, and one of the questions, and it was a joke question, but I thought I'm still going to answer it. And they said, "Are you a robot?" Because actually there is an element of that. Like when you're running for that long, you're just going through the motions, really. It's just rinse and repeat again and again and again. You know, I had absolutely no idea what time of day it was. To me, it was either daylight or nighttime. I had no idea what lap I was on. It was just there's a video of me actually of I think I'd just come off 40, and someone said to me, I think I asked how many yards have I done, and the guy with the video camera was like, "You've done 40." And I was just like, what? Like, I couldn't compute, like, how is that possible? How have I been going for 40 hours? And you can hear my crew, like, literally spelling it out to me. You have run for 40 hours. You've done 40 yards. And I was still like, huh? So you do, I think there is an element of being a robot. You just go through the motions and just keep going. And that's where having really good crew helps, because... on Rasselbach, Kev was amazing. He just kept, like, every time I came in, he'd sort me out, kick me out, keep me going, keep me fed. So, I think, key for me, crew's really important for backyard, definitely, because there comes a point when you're so tired you can't think for yourself anymore, and you just need someone to take that away from you and just tell you need to drink this, you need to eat that. You know, have you been to the loo recently? If you haven't, go. You know, just like tell you what to do. And then you just do the easy bit of just one foot in front of the other, keep going.
How does it differ then from like when you've done 200 miles? Like, did you sleep when you did WildHorse? Or?
Yeah, when I did WildHorse, I had this idea that I had run the longest event I'd done in terms of time on feet was Copthorne races, and that took me 32 hours to do that, and I hadn't slept or didn't slightly need to sleep. So when I went into WildHorse, I thought, okay, I can do 32 hours on no sleep. So my plan was to get through to night 2 and then have a sleep as it got dark for night 2. But the reality of it, when you're running 100 miles and you're, you know, approaching sort of 30 hours, you haven't really got that far left to go, so you can keep going. But on a 200 miler, you've got a really, really, really long way still to go. So I think I got to the 100-mile marker and it was about maybe 29, 30 hours. And I was so tired. I was shocked at how tired I was. And luckily I had crew. Angela, she met me. She's got a camper van, so she met me, and I just crawled into the van. I think I had a 3-hour sleep, and it really shocked me and it was frustrating because that sleep was during daylight, and I just thought, this is a waste of visibility. You know, I'd much rather sleep at night time. So on WildHorse, I think I had 2 or 3 proper, like, long, like 3-hour sleeps. And then when I came towards the end, it wasn't my finest moment. I'd got bitten by a horsefly just before coming into Krakow. I didn't know at the time it was a horsefly, but my leg just swelled up and it was so, so painful. And the last 38 miles of WildHorse was horrific. I was in so much pain. I couldn't run at all. I was just barely walking. And I was just so exhausted, and it was really hot. And I remember like just sitting on the floor. I mean, I had Francis was with me pacing. I don't know how he kept me in such good spirits, but like I sat on the floor at one point, like playing in the sand. He was like, "What are you doing? You know, you get up, get going." And I was like, "I'm just going to take my shoes and socks off." And then I ran like a few miles barefoot, and then Angela like came in with the van, and they just like pushed me into the van, and I just like literally just sat down and just went donk like that and just fell asleep for 20 minutes. And then they woke me up and got me going. So that, yeah, the last 38 miles of WildHorse was a struggle. I was in a lot of pain. I was really, really slow, and I was very, very sleep deprived. So this year, going into it, I will have a sleep strategy. I don't know what that is yet. Don't know what it looks like, but I think to me that's the key of doing well in the really long stuff. I think you do need to have a good sleep strategy, and you can't just have one because you don't know how you're going to be on the day. So I think I need a plan A, B, C, D, maybe a few more. And I'm hoping if I can manage my sleep better, then I'll have a stronger. That's my aim this year, is just to have a stronger finish, not walk the final 38 miles, because 38 miles is a very long way to walk.
Yeah. Is that like your A goal this year then, is WildHorse?
I think in December, my A race for the year was WildHorse. I wasn't expecting the backyard thing to go. Initially I entered the one in January, and I entered the one in September. But then the January one obviously got me the place in the England team, so now that means I'm in a backyard in July. And then the March one, that was, I was invited to that. So I've gone from planning to do 2 backyard ultras to now having 4 in the year. So that's kind of shifted things now. WildHorse is, the A to B is the stuff that I love. I think that's where I'll always go. That's my joy. And then with Backyard Ultra, I sort of feel like maybe it will just be a temporary thing. I've sort of got my heart set on, getting a record. Let's just go with it for now, see what happens. But I'm asking a lot of my body this year, because it's like, that first backyard was 137 miles. The next one was 209. WildHorse is 200 odd miles. Then I've got so every other month I'm doing these massive, massive distances, which I've done big distances, but not close together, and not so many of them in a year before. So it will be interesting to see, if my body can cope with that, or there is a chance I just might fall apart at some point. We'll see. But WildHorse for me originally was the A race, and I think it still is. I really want to go back, not get bitten by a horsefly, and have a strong finish. And it's just such an amazing, the company, Pegasus, who Reese and Keris, they're just such amazing people, and all of the volunteers are incredible, and you just feel like every time you come into a checkpoint, you feel like you're coming home. And you've never met these people before, but they're so accommodating and warm and wanting to help you, and just they're really, really amazing volunteers at their races. So I recommend them a lot.
Yeah. So going back then, you said that you did your first marathon in 2009.
I think so.
So that's quite a gap between 2009 doing a marathon and then doing an ultra in 2019.
Yes.
Like, what's the
so
middle bit?
I work as a nanny, and I was working in Jordan in the Middle East for the royal family. So I was living in a palace, and the children were at school, I think, about 6 hours a day. And because I lived in a palace, I couldn't just come and go as I pleased. I was there 6 days a week, and then when it was my day off, I would leave the palace grounds and do what I wanted. So when the kids were at school, it was pretty boring. This was a long time ago. So I had a mobile phone, but they're different to how they are today. I had a laptop, but again, I don't think Netflix wasn't really a thing. So my employers very kindly said to me I could use their gym in the palace grounds. So my choices really were to sit in my bedroom and occupy myself. I did write a recipe book while I was there. I'm not that good a cook. Anyway, so it was either sit in my room and find something to do, or use the gym. I hate gyms so much. But anyway, I decided I'll use the gym. I didn't really know how to use any of the equipment, but I could figure out the treadmill. So I started running on the treadmill every single day. Then I found out that Amman City had a marathon. So I was like, well, I'll enter that, because, I'm using the treadmill. I may as well have a goal. So I did all of my training for the marathon on the treadmill. I figured out a training plan off the internet. I remember reading about toenails. You have to cut your toenails about 5 days before. So if you cut them too short, they've got time to grow back. That really stuck because I had it all written down. So on my training plan, I even had the day that I needed to cut my toenails. So I was using the treadmill. I had a bike that I was using, and I had a rowing machine. So they were the three things I used, and I just gradually built up. People talk about time on feet. This was just time moving. And then I went and did the marathon. I'd never run outside. I'd only ever run on the treadmill in the gym. I'd never run outside in Jordan. But I was used to working in the heat. I think it was in October and we started at like 6 a.m. So the heat didn't really hit till a few hours in. And it's quite a hilly course. But yeah, no, so I did it. I did the marathon. I think about 3 kilometers. Oh, that was it. I'm much better now, but at the time I had a thing about Portaloos. I was almost like a phobia. And my friend had done the London Marathon and she had told me how she'd needed the loo like halfway round and had to queue for ages to use a Portaloo. And I was like, well, I don't want to wee during the race. So I didn't drink anything. I stopped drinking 2 hours before the race and literally drank nothing during the race. I think I had some jelly babies. I got to like 3 kilometers before the end and there was an aid station there. And I just remember they had these little cups with blue stuff in. Oh my gosh, I was so thirsty and I was just like downing everything and I could hear it. You could like hear it like going into my stomach and swilling around. And I was like, I don't care about this marathon anymore. I just want to drink. It's all I want to do. This is, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And then I like looked at the sign that said how many kilometers in I was. And I was like, all right, the finish is like 3 kilometers away. I reckon I can do this. Like, off I went and all this like liquid was like you could hear it. Anyway, I did it. Yeah, 4 hours, 34 minutes and 34 seconds. Like that is the only race time I remember because it was just to me such a phenomenal achievement. And I definitely, even then, I would not have said I was a runner. And after the marathon, I didn't really go back to the treadmill. That was done. And I didn't really run again then until many years later when I was back in the UK and joined this boot camp. So I did do a marathon, but that was a long time ago. And I just think, wow, I think that says something about me that I didn't know about me. The fact that I was so determined to do that marathon, I was willing to use a treadmill to train every single day. I hate treadmills. I hate gyms. I don't like doing exercise indoors. Since when I have used a treadmill, it's like the worst, most boring 30 minutes of my life. So, so when things are hard in training, I think, well, you trained for an entire marathon on the treadmill, so this is nothing.
That is, yeah. And to then just like, you're like, yep, I'm done with running now.
Yeah.
And then just, 10 years go by and then you're like, I'm going to start running again.
Yeah, well, that's me. I think that was with Sherwood Pines. So the whole Rasselbock Sherwood Pines, because the whole thing with me, I guess maybe I'm a selfish person, but I run because I love it. I don't, there is that element of fitness, but there's lots of things you can do. I don't have to run. I can do swimming. I used to do belly dancing. There's lots of different types of things you can do to keep fit. So I wouldn't have said I run to keep fit. I run because I love it. And the whole purpose of it is to make me happy. And I think that was the thing with Sherwood, with the Rasselbock at Sherwood Pines, is I wasn't happy anymore, and I wanted to stay true to myself. And that's partly, that's why I stopped. It wasn't fun, and running to me needs to be fun. So if I woke up, with the marathon, I did it. decided it was done, didn't need to run it anymore. So the same thing could happen again. You know, I could wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, I don't really like running anymore. So I'll just stop, and I won't have a problem with that. I'll just go and I'll find something else, maybe go back to belly dancing. But yeah, I think, the big thing for me is running gives me a lot of joy and it makes me super happy. That's why I do it. And yeah, and like I said, I'm happiest in the Brecon Beacons. So,
Yeah.
I think I just like being outside and in nature. I don't run with music. I do, well, Backyard Ultra, I do run with music, but everything else I do not. Because the bird song for me is, that's my music. That's a bit naff, doesn't it? But it is.
I can imagine you'd need music doing 50 laps of a backyard.
Yeah, you sometimes need to just get out of your head. And so I had decided with Sherwood Pines, I was like, when I get to my PB lap, I'm going to listen to AC/DC Thunderstruck. So that's what I did. And it was epic. You know, I was dancing, running backwards. It was great. It was really, really great. But the thing is, because I don't listen to music, I only have about maybe 10 songs on my phone. So I was listening. So I was tending to do the music, have headphones on there was a certain section of the course that I found a bit difficult. So I put the music on there and then stop. And then certainly overnight when it was just me and Ian, and I was struggling with sleep deprivation. I was having the music a lot more, but then it was a problem because I was just listening to the same 10 songs again and again and again. And I think I was driving Ian mad because Cranberries' Zombie was on there and I was singing it out loud quite a lot. And we weren't together, but I think we were near enough he could hear me singing. So for the next Backyard Ultra, that is something I have made a point. My current playlist, my Backyard Ultra playlist is, I think, 6.5 hours long. So I'm trying to get more music on there, but it needs to be quite specific music, you know.
Yeah.
There's different, I go for ones, sometimes it's the beat, so I can imagine my feet run into the beat, or sometimes it's the words, or sometimes it's the title. So obviously the Proclaimers are on there, and I've got Nancy Sinatra, These Boots Are Made for Walking. So so some songs I've gone just to make me laugh. Some of them are more emotional ones, and then some are very much the beat, just to keep me going. So I'm quite looking forward, because I don't usually run with music. I'm quite looking forward to the next Backyard Ultra, because that's when I can put the music on and see how I do with it.
Yeah. No, it's quite interesting hearing about all the differences between all the different things you've done, because you've literally done it all, FKTs, A to Bs, Backyard Ultras,
Yeah, I guess so.
There's not much more out there to do currently.
Yeah, and then the because Dragon's Back is obviously a multi-stage race, whereas WildHorse is a the clock doesn't stop, so it's multi-day. Copthorne is 10-mile loops, and then Backyard 4-mile loops, FKTs. I did that road marathon many, many years ago. Actually, my friend Lucy, she just did the Brighton Marathon. And that was pretty cool, actually, because I did some of her longer training runs I did with her. And that was all on the road. And I just remember being blown away at how quickly, because I'm so used to being in the mountains and it can take me an hour to do 3 or 4 miles. And we were just bashing out 20-mile runs. I was like, wow, I can't believe we've done it so quickly. So, but that actually worked in my favour, because the Trails and Tarmac Backyard Ultra that I did in January, half the routes on tarmac. And I'm not used to tarmac. So the training runs I did with Lucy were actually massively important to help me do well at that one. So even a bit of road running I've done.
So this year's goals then, you've got your WildHorse.
Yep.
You've got your different backyards, and you're looking at setting a record.
Yes.
And you're on the England team.
Yeah.
What about the Barclay? Is that still like in the
Oh,
back of
yeah.
your mind constantly?
Yeah.
Do you have
So,
like an idea of when you think you're gonna get there?
well, I just, I just don't know at the moment. I need to dedicate a bit of research time to it. And I think I need to talk to more people who know people who've done it. Um, but there is always this hope that what if I do get, no, not what if I do, when, when I get the GB record, will that be enough? You know, will they, because a lot of the athletes that are there have been invited there. So, um, yeah, I do want to do it. I desperately want to do it, but also, right now, I'm not ready for it. I think I need to do a lot more to be ready for it. But I just feel like I'm moving in the right. I really feel like I'm moving in the right direction
Yeah.
towards it, and I may never get there, but maybe that's not a terrible thing. It's just really nice to have this ridiculously, seemingly unachievable goal and enjoy the journey. You know, like so. I know someone who did a race recently, and their training plan was perfection. Everything they did was perfect, but on race day itself, they woke up tired. It was a lot hotter than expected, and their time just went. You know, their hoped for time went out the window, and they didn't enjoy it. And I felt really bad for them because everything had gone so well, and they'd had this awful race. But then a friend had said to them, "But do you know what? The rate all you're doing on race day is collecting the medal. You're just doing it to collect the medal,
Yeah.
to prove that you've done it." And it's a bit like, and I thought actually that's so true, because on race day it's important what you have done to prepare yourself, but you're always relying on luck, because things just need to go right. And it's the same kind of thing with Barclay. Maybe that race day will never happen. Maybe I'll never get to, well, I won't collect a medal, but maybe I'll never get there. But the whole process and journey of working towards it, like, it's making me just do stuff that I never ever dreamed would be possible. You know,
Yeah.
going back to the Gwyn Harris round, like, I get goosebumps now. Just like the fact I did that. I like taught myself everything I needed to know to get myself around 75 miles in the mountains, not die. You know, and I enjoyed and it was just, yeah. And I would never have done that if it wasn't for Barclay. I
Yeah.
never would have got into backyard if it wasn't for Barclay. So I would just be doing like, oh, I don't want to say it, but normal ultras, you know, safe ultras, you know, where you're just running around the local area. Help is at hand if you need it. You know, and obviously they have a place. They're amazing achievements. But for me, like, yeah, I just want to slightly push it a little bit.
Amazing. Well, it's been great talking to you, and you've requested that I
Oh,
go
yes.
back to my old tradition of asking the final question of, if you could set a challenge for the listeners this week, what would you set?
Right, my challenge for the listeners is to do an FKT route,
Okay.
because I've had so many people say to me, "Oh my God, you've done an FKT. You must be so fast." No, I'm not. I'm actually really slow. I'm really not fast at all. But the thing is, there's so many FKT routes out there. There's so many on your doorstep that you don't even realise. Some of them are super short, some of them are super long. Go and find one, especially if you're a woman. Go and find one when there is no woman's name listed. Go and do that FKT and get your name on that list, because you have just carved out a little piece of history. Your name will forever be there. And okay, maybe it's not for everyone, but for me, that is such a cool thing to know that you were the first one that did it. And it's just something to be proud of. You know, it's a nice way to explore new areas, and give yourself. I think what FKTs have done for me is give me a confidence. I can do it, and so can you. So find yourself an FKT route. If there's already a man's name, if there already is a woman's name, there might not be a mixed sex. So go and grab a friend of the opposite sex, go and do that FKT route, and you can have yourself a little piece of history and you can be proud of yourself for it.
There we go. Challenge for the week, guys. Thanks again for coming on.
No problem.
And I wish you all the best in your races this year. And knowing me, I'll probably see you at one at some point.
Cool. Thank you. It'd be great.
What a journey, guys. Like I said, Lizzie is this phenomenal person, and it was a pleasure meeting her today and getting to hear about her story. And she had literally just come from setting another FKT right before coming on the podcast. Like she said, you should go out and set your own FKT. Head over to the website, and there's just plenty more coming from Adventure Athletes. We're opening up our sports massage now. We're opening up our website. All the booking systems are online and fully functional now, so you can book in with online PT, in-person PT, massage, whatever it is that we do, you can book it online. And we've got a running course which is starting next week. So Carl, the guy from the first episode back, he's running a running course. It's for people that are going from 5 to 10k or trying to improve their 5 or 10k speeds. It's a fully structured running course. It runs over 12 weeks. You're with Carl twice a week, and you've got, there's so much to it. You get a strength and conditioning plan off me. You get 2 runs a week and advice from Carl. You get a discount at Soulmate in Merthyr. You get a Protein Rebel discount for your gels and different supplements while you're running. You get discounts off of the other aspects of Adventure Athlete. So if you're looking at doing like an event that we've got in future, or if you're looking at PT or massage, then there's discounts for that as well. There is so much to this course. The value for money is absolutely incredible, and I can guarantee most runners will benefit from doing it. So if you're interested in that, head over to adventureathletes.co.uk and find out more about what we do. Until next time, guys.